I think the discussion's been really good and quite reflective and deep about how can, you know, in the context of, I've been talking about a strike that, despite the enormous heroism of a really sort of downtrodden section of the population in action, that strike was defeated, and obviously the UCU is in the middle of the strike, which we, you know, are hopeful and confident can be won because of the determination of the ordinary members and activists in the UCU, despite the, you know, the leadership of the UCU, which is a bit of a, you know, a mixed bag, really. Just to address a couple of the points. I mean, Oliver raised some really interesting questions, which I think have been answered, but I'll add my two penneth about essentially can you win by trade union struggle, or do you have to use the law? And I think Tessa made the point. We don't limit our bag of tricks. We do use the law on occasions. We would use the law whilst we're out on strike as well. We're not opposed to using the law, but the judicial system is part of the class system. I mean, that doesn't mean you can't go to an employment tribunal and win your case or whatever, but in class terms, the judicial system and the individual judges who make it up are part of the class system. You know, the judges who arbitrate on the law tend to come from, not totally, but predominantly white, middle and upper class backgrounds, and the law is generally applied, with some exceptions, to benefit the ruling class. And you can see that particularly, I think, with the difficulties that some trade unions get in with very complicated balloting laws. You know, in the past, as I said earlier, you would stick your hand up at a mass meeting to say whether you went on strike. You didn't have to give notice. You would then just walk out there and went there and then. Now, as you know, as Sarah will know, the balloting laws are really complicated, and it's really easy to fall foul of them. And the bosses, the employers, often will go to court to say, you know, there's been a tiny mistake in a ballot that would not have affected the outcome. You know, a handful of people have been wrongly balloted or whatever, and it stops the strike. But yes, we do use the law where we have to. We would very much hope a Corbyn-led government would reverse the anti-trade union laws that previous Labour governments failed to do. But I think Steve or Sarah, possibly others, made the point how the latest set of anti-trade union laws with the threshold on balloting has totally backfired, largely because the CWU smashed that so decisively in their ballot. They didn't have to go on strike because it was so decisive, as has the UCU. So the kind of the whip of the counter-revolution almost has spurred trade unions on to vote in these ballots. I mean, a number of people raised issues about the trade union leaders, and you know, one of the issues is they are so economically removed from the poverty and the lifestyles and living standards of ordinary people. So I think, I mean, don't quote me, but the leader of my union, UNISON's my union, Dave Prentice, I think he's on something like £130,000 salary, but then the pension pot is also massive. His wife and partner is also an assistant general secretary for UNISON, so she's probably on not far from that. So that family who work for UNISON have got a pension pot and a salary of probably well in excess of £250,000, which makes them totally out of touch with cleaners and kitchen staff and so on, who are existing in local government on barely more than the minimum wage.
Doesn't the head of the CEO of Save the Children, he's on £250,000?
Yeah. Again, that's another anomaly in the charity section. I agree. And when our candidate in UNISON, Roger Bannister, stood, he's always stood on the issue of a UNISON General Secretary on you know, the average wage of a UNISON member, which that's our, you know, one of our sort of principles whenever we stand in trade union elections, and also when we've stood in parliamentary things. We would only take, we wouldn't take the full MP's salary if we were elected. And obviously when we had comrades like Dave Nellis and so on, who were Labour MPs in Parliament, they took, I think, the average wage. I think Terry Fields took the wage of a firefighter. Dave took the average wage of a worker in Coventry and gave the rest of the money.
Wasn't it?
Yeah,
skilled. Dave Nellis worked us out.
Exactly.
He took the skilled working.
Exactly. So they were, they're not economically removed, and that's crucial. And just finally, I think it was Ian raised some points about the unions in local government, and it is true that the unions that organise in local government, which is mainly UNISON, GMB, and to a lesser extent Unite, those national leaderships are very right wing, but things are fast changing in UNISON. We have very active socialists and a broader left in UNISON campaigning to try and change the leadership, and we made significant gains in the last national elections. But it's often the case that the willingness of branches on the ground totally outmatches the willingness of the national leadership, where the national leadership is now trying to get us to accept a pay offer in local government and in the NHS that would represent a cut in living standards for most people. On the local level, you've had fantastic victories like the bin workers in Birmingham, the janitors and care workers in Glasgow have scored many victories with the socialist leadership on the branch level. So I'll leave it there.